Now, for those of us who remember the heady campaign days of 2015 and 19, there was a heated discussion between Nigeria's two superpower political parties, the APC and the PDP, around the possibility of ending poverty in this country. There were warnings that unless destitution was urgently and properly addressed, it would lead to devastation in Nigeria and create other collateral problems, including insecurity and, of course, unemployment. The APC, under President Buhari, took up the challenge, promising to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. Well, now that issue has resurfaced, and this time with a vengeance, with the latest official figures showing that 133 million people, some 63% of Nigeria's population, are living in poverty. And so, expectedly, recriminations galore. How did we get here, and how are we going to get out of this awful place? Well, one of those who had deployed warnings and is once again sounding the alarm is the popular civil society activist, author, playwright and former Nigerian Senator Shehu Sani, and he joins me now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in, and we finally got there, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
What's your reaction to these new poverty figures, which show that destitution in this country has been increasing, not decreasing? I mean, it really is a disaster for Nigeria, isn't it?
Thank you very much for having me once again. Well, the figures that were recently released by the National Bureau of Statistics is something that has been speculated by Nigerians, as you can see in their daily lives. The government in power has actually promised to lift 100 million people out of poverty. Today, less than 6 months to their exit from power, it's clear that over 133 million people have been plunged into poverty. So this is indicative of the failure of the economic policies of the present administration. The idea of eradicating poverty was ingrained in the manifesto and campaign promises and pledges which they made. But what have we seen later? They are supposed to have create jobs, provide economic opportunity as the basis for which people can be lifted out of poverty. But we have seen some pedestrian policies that has to do with sharing 5,000 or 10,000 naira market money, and then some agricultural policies that are all domiciled in CBN, and some empowerment programs which actually has not been able to address the fundamental issues of poverty. And you can't divorce the security challenges we have in this country with the economic problems we have faced. It was expected when President Buhari took over power, there could have been an economic team that could have laid down all these policies and programs that simply becomes a roadmap for which the government can address the problems of poverty. But it took almost 5 years before they conceived packaging an economic team. And at a certain time, even the office of the chief economic advisor to the president was empty. There was virtually nobody there. So in the larger sense, we can say that this present administration has failed to address the basic problems of poverty. And there is this mentality among Nigerians that poverty is only prevalent in northern part of Nigeria, as if it is all well with the southern part of Nigeria.
Right. Well, I was going to make a point very quickly, because part of that NBS report suggests that 65% of poor people live in the north, but it also says that 35% live in the south. And those figures, I mean, on either side are very worrying, aren't they?
Well, they are worrying. A lot of things contribute to the situation we find ourselves. For example, I come from the northwestern part of Nigeria, where most people are involved in agriculture. And as a result of the insecurity, the terrorism and banditry that has become a daily tragedy in our own part of the country, many people couldn't even go to their farms. Many people were displaced from their village, from Zamfara, Katsina, Sokoto, Niger State, were displaced from their villages. They couldn't go to their farms and plant crops or harvest crops. They are virtually being caged even within the local government headquarters. So the dislocation which the agricultural sector has faced as a result of this insecurity has seriously imperiled the capacity or ability of people to help themselves.
Although, to be fair, I mean, the issues of poverty didn't start today. They've just got worse because, I mean, when it's viewed against the fact that the North has ruled this country for much of the post-independence period, I mean, you wonder why people in the North are still so poor.
Well, it is how you use and apply power. It is a fact that most of those who have held political positions, the highest positions in this country, are from the northern part of Nigeria. But they have not been able to use that opportunity to address the problems of poverty in the region, particularly empowering the poor, investing in agriculture, investing in industry, and providing economic opportunities for our people. They have actually not been able to do that. And I think this also demystify the fact that it's only when you have someone from your own part of the country in the position of power that all your problems will be addressed.
That's a very good point.
Yes. When there was agitation to have a president from Niger Delta, and the Jonathan Goodluck came into being, and then, but this problem is still there.
Absolutely.
And Northerners have been in power also for a very long time, and this is what we're having. The three most industrialized states in northern part of Nigeria remains Kano, Kaduna, and Plateau State. And I can say that 80% of most of these industries are virtually down. And the basic contributor to the issue of poverty in the north, in fact, is the problem we face of insecurity now. That made it worse, because I know that many people have migrated from rural areas to the urban centers because of this. So it escalated the problem.
So given what you've just described for us, how important is it now, as the country prepares to go into another election, and the politicians are once again making promises, that these terrible figures have come out now?
Well, one thing we should all know is that, or remind ourselves, is the fact that Nigerians have been used to promises since 1999. Many promises were made. Government after government, you see promises of restructuring, but as simple as even implementing a Ronsai report of trimming down public institutions, it's even difficult to implement. So we have reached a point today, it's not what you promise that matter, but the hope that those promises will be delivered.
Right.
And I believe that out of the four political front runners that have presented themselves, each one of them has a good track record as an individual. And we hope that whoever emerges as the president of this country will do better than those who have been there, because it's very clear that the President Buhari's administration have no economic policy and no economic direction. Today they will complain that the discourse have not been delivering, and their license will be revoked, and tomorrow nothing happens. The refineries and all power sector and so many things have remained unaddressed. So I believe that those who are coming to office, there is one promise which they have made, all of them, places, which was the fact that they all promised to remove petroleum subsidy, which is now jacking up in trillions of naira. So I hope they will be able to do that, because the present administration couldn't do it for two reasons. One is the fear of public protest, and secondly, there is a subsidy oligarch that have taken charge of so many things, and they are afraid to move against it. So we hope that the next president will have the vision, the courage, the boldness, the patriotism to implement immediate and far-reaching economic reforms that will remove this country out of the
So which, because I mean, people look to you as a spokesperson on behalf of the public, as a representative of the public. I mean, you represented a part of this country in the Senate. People look to what you say and your body language about the political parties and so on to kind of draw inference from it. Which of the parties and their candidates do you see as having the best plan to tackle poverty? Because obviously, as you said, poverty is not just a standalone. It leads to other societal ills such as insecurity and underdevelopment. I mean, I know you support a particular party, but you are a member of a particular party. But I'm wondering whether there's any difference in terms of how you see the best plan to tackle poverty from the candidates generally.
Well, you see, one of the tragedy we face in this political season is the death of conversation on issues. We are not discussing issues on education, on health, on transportation, on empowerment or economic opportunities. The candidates are not engaged on issues that are of importance to the country and to the people in the country. So Nigerian political space has become so toxic. It is all about innuendos, insult, abuses, mock-wrecking, mock-slinging, and all sort of name-calling, all sorts of things. This is what you have. Candidates are not engaged on what do they have to deliver in terms of all these sectors, from aviation to transportation to security to all those things here. It is all about personal history of those candidates. It's all about private lives of those candidates. It's all about the past of those candidates, which is good because we are in a democracy. You are expected to live and behave above board. But the danger of it in a country of 200 million people, that we hope this season will provide, will be a new platform for which a new leader will emerge that will address those myriads of challenges we have. But these are not the issues now.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, I can say whoever emerged as the president of Nigeria out of these four people, from Atiku to Asuwaju and Ahmed Tinubu to Peter Obi and Rabi Wasanko, Nigeria is in good hands. But I am of the PDP, and I believe that someone who has the experience, and who has been in the corridors of power and know where the problem is Atiku Abubakar.
Right.
But I will not have said that Asuwaju has also proven himself in Lagos. He has done a lot and achieved a lot. And Rabi Kwankwaso, his own record sheet is very clear. And Peter Obi has proven to be a prudent leader. So whoever takes over a position of authority and leadership in this country, I believe that Nigeria will be in better hands than where we are today.
Well, that's a very diplomatic answer.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, though, that you have consistently been very critical of the APC government. But while you're very critical of the APC and its handling of insecurity, poverty, economy, and so on under President Buhari, you've been reported as commending the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Tinubu, for fixing his campaign in the southeast on a Monday, a day that the secessionist group IPOB observes as a sit-at-home day in the region, in effect daring IPOB. Tell us why you think it's a good move.
Well, you see, if you present yourself as one that wants to be a commander-in-chief, you must prove to be a commander-in-chief. It is unfathomable that an organization will hold a certain region to ransom out of the official public holiday an organization imposed a seat at home in a section of the country, and almost most people are behaving as if that is nothing. So for the fact that you have a presidential candidate who is ready to defy that, so he shows that he is ready to lead in the front line in terms of confronting separatist groups as it is there.
But obviously...
So as far as I'm concerned, I believe that is a daring, commendable, courageous, and bold act, which all the presidential candidates, including my own from the PDP, should be able to do it. I knew very well that we had a rally in Kaduna a few weeks ago where armed thugs attacked the rally. But it never stopped us from continuing our own rally, and everything went on, despite many people were injured to a certain level. So I want a leader who will see that I'm going to do this and that should be done.
Right. Nevertheless, talking about the Southeast, I mean, obviously it could go bad, couldn't it? It just takes one attack and it all goes belly up.
Well, you see, we can't be held hostage by a certain group of people. And when you have mass number of people that says no to violence, how many of them are there? You see, we can't just surrender our sovereignty to a group of people. Whether they are terrorists, they are bandits, or they are separatists.
I understand
so
that.
I am in support. I'm in support. And I believe that what he has done is an act of courage.
But could it also backfire? Because there are a lot of mainstream Southeasterners, not the fringe elements, not the terrorists or the separatists or whatever, but a lot of mainstream Southeasterners who think that Nnamdi Kanu, for example, should not be in custody, especially after a court has declared his detention effectively illegal. Could this type of campaign that you're talking about turn people against Mr. Tinubu rather than for him in that part of the country?
Well, you see, I am a human rights activist, and one that has experienced detention, imprisonment, and I've stayed longer than Nnamdi Kanu in prison. At a certain point, I was sentenced to life imprisonment during the military era, and I've spent over 4 years in prison. And I wore prison uniform. I've been to many prisons, from Kaduna prison to Kirikiri prison, Port Harcourt prison, Aba prison in Abia State. That was where I finished my own prison term until when Abacha died and I was released. So I believe that I can be lectured about prison and detention. And there is no way someone like me will support the imprisonment of any person. If I say I am not in support of imprisoned Nnamdi Kanu, I am saying it because of my own personal experience. And there is no way a country that is a democracy, that pride itself as one that should respect the rule of law, for a competent court to have issued a directive, and then we keep on rigmaroling, trying to find ways and loopholes to which we can circumvent the law. That is a different thing. I am not in support of that. But I'm also not in support of a group holding the nation hostage. And I believe that if you are a supporter and a promoter of the rule of law, you should support and continue to pressure government to obey court orders. So I am that. So for Aswaju to have fixed a date to do that is not mean he is in support of the arrest or detention of Nnamdi Kanu, but to see that we have a law and we have a country, and this has to be done. It is my own kind of thinking.
No, absolutely.
So it does not mean that I support.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
Because I know very well that for any person who has the experience of what we had, you wore leg chain, handcuffs, and you have been in isolation for a very long time, and the court says this is what should be done. It should be respected. At least we should be seen. This country is not about the president. It's not also about any minister. It's not about the political party. You run a country on the basis of rule of law. And if you say you are not going to respect those things, you have problems. Yes.
So we've got about a minute or so left. Unfortunately, we started a bit later than usual. But what's your assessment, broadly speaking, of the way the campaigns are going and the way the political landscape is looking at the moment between the front runners, Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, and Kwankwasa?
Well, first of all, I have made it clear in the earlier position which I made. Nigerian political campaign ought to be driven by issues that are of importance to our lives and the future of our country. Industrialization, security, the economy, health, education. These are issues that we're supposed to pursue and hold accountable and insist those who wants to lead us should provide details of what they want to do. But it's not that. So I think for the next few weeks or 2 months, there's a need to come back to that lane, come back on track. Let us hold our own candidates accountable. Let us question them. Let's interrogate them. Let's go through their manifestos and see what they have on the ground.
But so far, you don't see any of the candidates seeming to burn more fire than the other ones. I mean, are you getting a sense of who is sort of, whether Tinubu or Atiku or Obi or Kwankwasa, who's kind of making inroads going forward?
It's Atiku that is making inroads.
Right. Well, I thought you would say that.
Yes, of course. He is making inroads in that.
He is your candidate.
He is my candidate. And unfortunately for Aswaju, that he has to be, he is being loaded with issues that are not that basis of his campaign. And that is very hurting for a presidential candidate of a ruling party to have been deflected on not important issues like that. It is a tragedy for a country because we will end up electing people without knowing what they are actually going to do. Because at the time when we are supposed to hold them accountable, to interrogate and question them, we were doing other things. Yes.
I want to thank you very much indeed. It really always is a tremendous pleasure talking with you and getting the benefit of your analysis of this country. As you said, you've earned your wet wings and you're perfectly, it's what the things you say are extremely important. Shehu Sani is a former Nigerian senator, a popular civil society activist, author and playwright. Thank you very much indeed.